Hello everyone, it's Marie from Skeletorama again. Welcome back to my channel. Kim at a house shift. How are you? I'm doing good. So I think today we are going to work on the tablecloth for the table. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to do this tablecloth, how there's a ton of different ways that you can do it, right? So these, even though they kind of look like they stick out, they don't. Let me get a piece of paper for you here. So you can see that this doesn't actually, extend over the plane of the table. So even though it looks like we need to accommodate for this sticking out, it doesn't. It's an optical illusion, and we're not going to see it anyway, which is sad. But that does give us some options. So these are the fabrics that I'm looking at for it. We'll do that so that I can move these so that we can go over how we're going to figure out how we're going to do this, because we're going to make our own pattern, right? Because there isn't a pattern that I can find for this specific thing because I just made this thing. So what we're going to do is, I think I kind of want to do this as the top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do these, and I'm going to make one of this and one of this, just in case, because I don't want to get everything done and then be like, oh, I hate that. I need to make another thing. So I'll just make the other thing while I'm making the first thing, right? It's not like I won't be able to make another table that it'll fit. So I was thinking of having that there as the table top, and then having this as the part that hangs down. Or option B is we use this for the whole thing. So this, I think I would want the stripes to run down the table this way, but I want them to all face the same direction on the outside. That becomes problematic to do the old, let me cut a square of stuff and stick it on there and make it into a tablecloth, as you can see, because you will either have them running the length on this side, or if you go the other way, they'll be running the length on this side. So either way, two of your sides will not match each other, okay? And I don't want to do that. So what I was thinking of doing, in a flashback to my hotel banquet days, back when I was a chef long ago, what we used to do is we would have the main tablecloth, and then we would have table skirts that go around. And the ones that we would use obviously would either be on clips or on Velcro, and they're designed to, you have the main tablecloth and then they attach here. And then you're going to have some other little tablecloth things that are going to go in a square, over it like this, to make it decorative. So I think that's what we're going to do either way. So I'm going to do a main tablecloth piece here, and it's going to hang down at least a little bit, because it'd be dumb to kind of just stick a piece of fabric here and expect this to do all the work hiding everything, because it will not. But we'll do a main piece here, and then we will do the table skirt. So with the table skirt, again, you have some choices. You can either have it straight like this, or you can have it where it's ruffly. I think we're going to have it where it's ruffly, because I need to overcomplicate things apparently. So that's how that's going to work. So we've got, this is our tabletop, and this is the table skirt. Okay, picture it with me if you will. So I also want to make some of the square tablecloths here, and so they're going to kind of drape over this way. So I've got a few colors for that, fabrics, whatever. I've got this green one. I've got, of course, the hearts is definitely going to be on there. And then for the third one, I'm kind of torn between these two, because again, we want this to all not match, but we want the colors to play nicely together, for sure. This one I want in the center as the focal one, and it'll be on top of everything else. So, you've got sort of pattern. But this pattern reads more like a solid, so it might look better with sort of solid, pattern, solid. I don't know. So again, hedging our bets, we are going to make one of each of these, because again, I can always use a square tablecloth in a dollhouse, right? So let me clear some of this stuff up for a second, and we will go about figuring out how we are going to make a pattern. All right, so for the main tablecloth, that's the easiest one. So we'll go ahead and write that down here. Okay, so we'll call this main, and this is going to be just a huge mess, and I'll have to rewrite everything that is decided on a separate piece of paper so I don't confuse myself. But the main one here, we want this to cover this, and then we want it to go down, I would say, let's do about an inch. So we'll have it hang down at least an inch over each side. That gives us plenty of space, plenty of room for it to attach to. Again, there's several different ways we can do this, right? So you can do it as if you're doing a fitted tablecloth that's going to go over it. Why would you do that to yourself? That would be horrible. Or you can do it so that you've got your main tablecloth here, and then you have basically what are tabs that are all 1 inch in length, hanging off all 4 sides. So when you go to attach your table skirt, it's going to cover that because it'll hold them together, right? But it just makes it easier to make something that's the correct size and fit it on there. So the advantage we have is that we can do this, we don't have to cut 5 pieces, right? So we can cut this out of 1 piece and then cut pieces for this and sew them on there, okay? Which is probably what we're going to do. So what we need to do is figure out how long do we want this stuff. So for the main body piece, we want this to go across. So we are at a little over 4 inches. So now what I'm going to do is, since this is going to involve math, and when we get to the square ones, it's really going to involve math. Is there a simpler way? Probably, but this is the way we're going to do it. So this is 3 and what is this? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 sixteenths. I have a problem with inches in that when you do math to them, they're fractions of an inch on here. And these are not done in a base 10. These are done in a base 8 or a base 16 or 4 or whatever, right? F that. Seriously. Fractions is my least favorite thing in math, completely. You can't do like a point. You have to do more math to figure out the point. So we're going to do this, and we're going to flip this around, and we are going to use metric. Why? Because metric makes sense. Oh, it makes sense, which makes me happy. So we're going to do 10 centimeters. Okay, so we've got on this one 10 centimeters. We want it to go down roughly an inch. Well, I'm going to look on here. And since I don't know the conversion off the top of my head, I'm going to grab another ruler because why not, right? So you're looking at about 2.5 centimeters, 25 millimeters, roughly. Okay, so 10 plus 2.5 plus 2.5 because we're going on either side. And we need to do a seam allowance so we can hem it underneath so that our material doesn't fray and fall apart. So for that, I would do about, I'd say 0.5 millimeter. So if you multiply that by 2, that's going to be 1. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we want 16 centimeters for this measurement here. And then from this side to this side, we are looking at approximately 30 centimeters. Okay, so we've got this way, well, nope. We're just doing the center. So this way here is going to be 30 centimeters. Again, we're going to need some sort of seam allowance because we need to sew these tabs on. So we're going to use the same one. When you're doing sewing, pick a seam allowance and stick with it so that way, you know, you don't get confused. With inches, it's usually 1/4 inch seam allowance on everything. So we're going to call that 0.5 centimeter. So we're going to add 1 for both ends. Okay, so we need to do 16 by 31 centimeter piece of fabric for the part that will cover both long sides and the top. Now we need to do this one here. So we know this is 10 centimeters for these. We're going 10. And with this, we want to be able to do the hems on this as well so it doesn't ravel. The kind of wild card will be this here. I may add some extra into here. Yeah, no. Kind of don't want to do that. Well, we'll figure that part out when we get there. Because ideally you would have all your edges hemmed, but it's this that's the problem, right? When you have a corner like that. So it means you have to have your square and hem all 4 sides and then these 4 sides, but then you're going to be sewing 2 hemmed sides together, which is going to be bulky as all get out, right? So we definitely don't want that. So I'm probably going to leave these two sides unhemmed and hit it with freight check, because seriously, I'm just making my life easier. But on these, I can go ahead and hem them if I want to, right? So we've got 10, and they're going to hang down about an inch, so that's 2.5. Plus the hem allowance on both sides is going to be another 1. So that is 13.5 centimeters. Okay, so yeah, see, this is why I'm going to have these on the back. So main. So we want a piece that is 16 by 31, 16 centimeters by 31 centimeters. And then the two ends, we're going to do 10. Nope, it's going to be 10 plus 1. So it's going to be 11 centimeters by, and then that's 13.5. 13.5 centimeters. Okay. So that's going to be the pieces to make up this main one. Now, we're going to do this separate with the ruffles, okay? So what we're going to want is to find out how far the distance is between the top of this and the floor. So we can use that, and we'll eyeball it and measure basically how far is it from the top of this to the bottom of that leg. So you're looking at about 8 centimeters. Do we want it to go all the way to the bottom? Maybe not. So, you know, let's do 7. Yeah, we'll do 7 because that way the little feet will poke out and they'll look nice. Okay, so we've got the ruffle. It's going to be a long old piece, and this is 7 centimeters plus your seam allowance on both sides. So that's going to be half centimeter, 1, so that's going to be 8 centimeters. Now for the length, that's where it becomes interesting, because the easiest way to ruffle them is to baste it either by hand or with a sewing machine and then pull. And I'm going to show you how to do that, obviously. And then either sew or glue it once it's in its ruffled form. So this is going to be really long. There's the answer there. Let's see, how long is the fabric? All right, so it's basically going to be 8 centimeter tall strips, the full length of this, because we're going to have to add multiple strips together in order to make our ruffles. And they're going to be glued on, so that's not a big deal at all. And I'll probably do some kind of an edging, like some ribbon or something over it to kind of disguise the fact that you're joining a bunch of them together. Again, we'll see when we get there, okay? So that's that for the main tablecloth. So the ruffles will be 8 centimeters tall, we'll call that. All right, now here's the fun part. And this is the part where if you hate math, feel free to skip ahead and just take a stab at how big you want these squares. But I happen to like math. And so I'm going to have, and we'll just fold this up as an example, I'm going to have these squares here, and I want them to kind of hang over like so, right? So I can just guess, and I can fold stuff and guess, but I like to have a little bit more control over what I'm doing, right? So here's what I want to do. I want them all to be the same size, and I want them to extend point here to point here, like roughly the center, you know, and then one in the center. So how am I going to do that? Well, so you know how in school, and you had to learn some stuff you didn't like, and you're like, when the heck am I ever going to use that in my life? I'm about to show you. Remember the Pythagorean theorem, right? So when you want to find out the length of the sides of a right triangle, so that's a triangle as long as one of the angles is 90 degrees, you use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Believe it or not, that's how we're going to calculate this, okay? So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I tried playing around with that and having it in inches, and that's where you get that problem with the stupid fractions, right? Or if you've got, you know, 8.36 inches, okay, have fun converting that back, you know, because you're using a base 10 and you're trying to compare it against a base 8 or a base 16. So we're not going there. We're going to use metric and make our lives much easier. There's a reason that's the science standard. I wish we would comply with that at some point. But okay, so what we need to do here is we've got our square that we want, okay? And the length that I'm interested in is this long length here from corner to corner, because I want that to be, well, let's see, we've got 30, so it's going to be 15. Yeah, so I want that to be roughly 15 centimeters, right? Well, this is 15. So then how long do I make these? Right? Who the hell knows? Well, this is how you find out. And this may hurt a little bit, but I promise you I'll make it as painless as I possibly can, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to use a Pythagorean theorem, because this is my 90 degree. Now, these are 45 each. Who cares? It doesn't come into it really. So if I want a squared plus b squared to equal c squared, I know c. Okay, this is a, b, c. I know c is 15. So math is a language, right? If you recognize it's a language, it makes it a lot easier to do, for one. So read everything out and change only one thing at a time as you're doing it, and just kind of go down with it. So I want a squared plus b squared to equal c is 15 squared. Okay? So now we can start eliminating stuff, because we've got a variable here that we can do. So let's see what 15 squared is. And I'm going to pull up my calculator over here. 15 times 15. That's what squared is it multiplied by itself. So 225. So I know a squared plus b squared equals 225. And now you're probably thinking, okay, that's fascinating, but how the hell are we going to figure these out? Well, we have a secret weapon. Secret weapon is, this is a square. So we know that a and b are the same. Okay? So in this case, a squared equals b squared, right? So we can change this now, because we've got two different sides, to that. Okay, so it's 2 times a squared is 225. Oh, well, what can we eliminate now? Well, let's go ahead and do this. You do the same thing to both sides. 225 divided by 2 is what? It's 112.5. So a squared is 112.5. So in order to find that, we need to get rid of this little thing here, because we just want a. That's where the square roots come in. If you ever wondered why the hell square roots are there, that's why. So a is going to actually equal square root of 112.5. Luckily, calculators do that for you. That's what you hit, that little cool looking thing that looks like that. Okay, so it's going to look like this. So square root of x, and that is 10.6 centimeters. Ostensibly, in order to have a square where my line here is 15 centimeters, each one of my sides needs to be 10.6 centimeters. Let's test it, shall we? And let's get the table out of the way. Okay, so I've got my handy dandy ruler here. So I'm going to do 10.6. And I'm going to turn it where I can actually read it. There we go. 10.6, and expect this to be slightly crooked, because, you know, I'm not paying careful attention to how straight I'm doing that, but, and we got 10.6, and we've got 10.6. All right, so let's see what it tells us. From this corner to this corner, oh, look at that. It's 15 centimeters, right? So now I know what size square I need to have it extend the way I need it to. Do you have to always make it this complicated? You do not. I'm doing that because I really want to control how long these things are, because I have a tendency to make things too big, too small, whatever, and they don't hang the way I want them to, and they don't look the way I want them to. This will, okay? So now we know 10.6 centimeters for that. Again, hem allowance on both of these, so we're going to add +1 is 11.6 centimeters. So when I make my squares for these, I need to make them 11.6 centimeters. Okay, so now that we have done the painful math part, and if you didn't like math and skipped ahead, welcome back. We were just figuring out how big to make these little squares here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our fabric and look into cutting it and sewing it and all that stuff. So let me get some stuff out of the way and get some other stuff set up, and I'll be right back with you. All right, so we are ready to start cutting our first piece of fabric here. And I just wanted to point out that even though I did the calculations for, you know, how big I want stuff in centimeters to make it more accurate, unfortunately my quilting ruler does not go in metric, it's only imperial, so I had to convert back to inches, which is not a huge deal because I don't need this to be super crazy precise, but just know each time you convert and convert back, you are compromising the integrity of your measurements. You're gonna lose little bits here and there and here and there. But I figured it's okay because you're not going to see all of it. So if it comes up, you know, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch shorter than intended, it doesn't matter. You're not going to see it. Okay. And the other interesting thing too is that, you know, yes, do I go overboard with things? Well, you know, I want them to be correct, right? With the measurement stuff and that. And Lewis Carroll would have appreciated that because his real name was, I believe it's Charles Dodson. He was a mathematician. So he would have loved that I figured out to do the tablecloth with, you know, geometry. So there you go. That's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. So what I've done is I've taken this and I've converted our final measurements back into inches. And you'll notice it's 12 3/8-ish. These are all ish measurements because they didn't sync up, obviously, exactly. So this is as close as I can get to them, but that will kind of help. And a lot of these are in 1/16. So that'll be fun because this only goes to 8ths. Yay! And so we are going to do the first main tablecloth in this fabric here. And I am going to make probably another one in the other fabric, but I'm going to do the ruffles first only because I need to make sure that I have enough fabric to do the ruffles correctly. And then I can fiddle about with making an extra tablecloth if I want, or I'll have them both and I can look and see how it looks. So there's that. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut our main piece of fabric. We need one big square and 2 small squares. So 6 5/16 of an inch-ish by 12 3/8 of an inch-ish. And then 2 of them by approximately 4 5/16 by 5 5/16. These are written down, so they're real. You can kind of trust those, okay? So that's what we're going to do with that. Now, I have this. This is a water-soluble marking pen. It's really handy for doing any kind of sewing things because A, it's not like if you know, do something with a pen on a piece of fabric, it's going to stay. So you better hope it's not going to stay in your finished design. This, if it does, you just wash it out or take a sponge and wipe it off. But this way we can measure this. I also have my cutting mat and a rotary cutter because if you think that I can cut this thing straight with scissors, hi, welcome to the first one of my videos that you saw. Because yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So my rotary cutter will help with that. And then for the seams and stuff, I do have my little clover iron. So this is a little mini iron. Isn't that cute? Look at that. And it's got a little stand. So once we cut all the pieces out, then we will do this kind of stuff and iron the little hems in them. Again, with miniatures, the devil's in the details. So as long as you pay attention to all those little details, is it going to take you longer? Sure, but it's going to look better when you're done. It's not going to look, you can tell when you haven't, say, ironed the hem, you know, versus when you did. So we have our first one here. Let's get this paper out of the way. And we will open this up. This doesn't really matter which direction it's going to go. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that a professional cut it at some point. So I'm going to look for my selvage end. The selvage end is the end when they created your fabric, where everything's looped back over, right? So it's nice and solid, but it's also straight. So we're going to make that be one of our long straight ends, right? In theory, that's straight too. And we'll put our quilting ruler. I love quilting rulers because you can see through them. So yeah, if I hold that here, put that along the length of this, this lines up perfectly, so it is straight. So this needs to be, where's my paper? This needs to be 6 5/16 inches wide. So get that out of the way. Always things in the way. So 6 5/16. So that is, let's see, 2 1/2/8, right? Yeah, this is gonna be great. All right, so there's 6, 1, 2/8, and then halfway. And then I'm going to make a little mark here. And I'm going to use these marks, that's what I'm going to line this ruler up with at the end. So again, when you're cutting some kind of straight line, always give yourself at least 3 markers, because that way you'll know if one of them went completely wonky, and you can make sure you're getting the right one. So 6 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/16. And do another little line here. I don't know if it's picking up on camera. You can kind of barely see it over here where I'm at. So 6 and 2 1/2 eighths there. Okay. I'll do it on this one. So you can kind of see. Let's see if I can bring it up where you can see it. So it's right here. See, it's just a nice light mark. So now we are going to take this and we are going to line my ruler up. As soon as I find them again, there they are. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do the long one first. The key is to find all 3 measurements. I found one. Where'd you go? There it is. Okay. Jesus. I'm going to have to stand up for this here, because I need to put a decent amount of pressure on the rotary cutter. Held my first one go. There it is. Okay, there's the first one, second one, third one. All right. In theory, that's straight. It's probably not straight. Be very careful with rotary cutters, kids. These will cut the bejesus out of you. I was doing some quilting, and I'm like, oh, why don't I just cut this direction? And then when I took this into my hand, I'm like, oh, that's right. Now I remember. All right, so I'm going to press, and that's going to cut that. And now I have an already cut end that I can use to line it up. Okay. Did I swerve? I totally swerved on it. All right, so now we have our 6 5/16-ish wide piece of fabric. So our next measurement is going to be 12 3/8 inches tall. This is see-through. This goes long enough where I don't have to mess with any of that. So I can do, let's see, 12 3/8. So 1, 2, 3. There's that. So we'll put a little bit longer of a line there so I can see it. There we go. Okay, 12 and 1, 2, 3. I'm forcing myself to count these because, as y'all have seen in previous videos, I am real good about knowing what the measurement should be and then measuring something completely different and not even seeing it. Just being like, dur. All right, so we've got this lined up here. I'm going to go ahead and cut that piece too. Yeah. Wow. I just put the guard on and tried to cut it like an idiot. Neat. Okay, always keep the guard on this when you're not actively using it too, because I promise it'll fall on your foot or something. This will go right in. You don't want to mess with that. Okay, so here we go. Now, in theory, this should be the length of our table plus about a 1/2 centimeter on either end. So let's bring our table in and double check before we do any other work on it. How did I do? Oh, yeah. See? There we go. Okay, so it's going to be here, and then it's going to hang down roughly 1 inch on either side. Okay? And I did have an idea about the hems, so everything could have hems, but I'll go into that when we get there. All right, so there's our main piece. And now we need the 2 pieces that are going to be at the end. We can actually use this. All right, and so those 2 are going to be, bring it in here, we've got 4 5/16 by 5 5/16. So this is currently sitting at 6 something. So we'll go ahead and cut it down in this direction first. So, a ruler, and 5 5/16, so that's 2 1/2. Yeah, let's put it on a darker spot so I have a shot at seeing that. So 1, 2 1/2 of these. And 1, 2 1/2. There we go, that's good. See that one? And then 2.5 of these. And again, we're going to line these up. And we're going to take this, drop the guard down, and cut this piece off. All right. So now we're going to have to do 2 pieces. They're going to be 4 5/16 long. How long is our piece of fabric here? Yeah, no, we're not going to get both out of the same one. Drat. Oh well. All right, so we've got 4 5/16, so that's 2, 4, 5. That's that 2.5 one again. Let me make sure I'm cutting on the right side of it. Yes, okay, good. All right, so we've got our nice line there. This looks awfully long, so let's see what I screwed up, shall we? Nope. And my ruler just slipped when I did that, but that's fine. All right, so in theory, yeah, this is way too long. Because see, it would only have to be 1 inch and then 1/2 inch on either thing. So let's go ahead and just cut this bad boy in half. Because, make sure we've got, so this direction is correct here. The short side here is going 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. We only need this to be, you know, about 1 inch. Oh, I think I measured this. Who the hell knows what I did, right? Something. Okay, so we only need this to be about 1 inch and then 1/4 inch on each side, so 1.5 inches. I thought that looked awfully ridiculously large. Okay, this I love because quilting rulers have that. So this is 1 inch here and this is 1/2. So I can just put this down. I don't have to make any markings or measurements to get to the measurement that I want. Okay, so there's 1.5. And 1.5. So if we bring our table back in, so we're going to have this here, this extends the correct place, and it's going down the correct amount. Okay, how the hell did I end up, I must have like dropped a decimal point somewhere, I think. Let's see, how many centimeters is this thing? This is 3, oh. Yeah, it's 3.5 centimeters, not 13.5. That's where I blew it. Okay, on my calculations. So, dear God. All right, so that's these guys here and the main one here. So these are going to interact like so. It's going to be here and here. And then this is going to go on the table. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hem both of these sides here and these sides here. Because when we do this one, we can hem both these sides. Oh shoot, we can't, can we? Yes, we can. Okay. And this bottom side, we're going to leave this plain, and then we can just glue it up under here. And it'll go like that. Okay, I think that'll do it. That'll probably be the easiest way. So to do that, I'm going to use the little iron, and I'm going to basically pre-fold my hems, right? Because I do not want to try to guess. And then when it's time to secure them, there's several different ways we can do it. You can sew them, or you can glue them. You can use double-sided tape, which is probably what I'm going to use. You can use these. So this is, I'm not even going to tell you what decade I bought this in, but suffice it to say, it doesn't look like this, the packaging anymore, and it certainly isn't that price. So this is called Stitch Witchery. This is basically like a fusible web for the stuff, and you put it between the 2 layers, you iron it, and it glues it together. This is the same thing. This is for apparel. It's permanent stick tape. You cannot sew through these once you put them on there because you will mess your needle up. So we're not going to mess with that. So instead, I'm probably going to use the 1/4 inch score tape, which is a double-sided tape you can get in the craft store. Sometimes it's got the red backing, sometimes it's got the white. That's what I'm going to use, I think, to do my hems. That seems to work the best for me personally with like the dollhouse textiles and things. So if you don't want to iron it, you can absolutely put this on here, and this is going to measure your 1/4 of an inch, and you just roll it. But I am going to iron it anyway, just so it's nice and crisp. So I'm going to get my, little iron plugged in, and I will see you guys back in a few minutes when it's hot enough. These take a little bit to heat up, so just know that. Alrighty, so this has heated up, hopefully sufficiently. We'll find out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take each side of it. I'm going to do the long sides first, and then I'll do the short sides, and I'm going to fold it up by, you know, roughly that 1/4 inch, 1/2 centimeter, and I'm going to hold it here, and then I'm going to press it down with my little iron and kind of go along the length of it like so. In theory, in a straight line, maybe, if I'm super duper lucky. All right, so there we go. Look at that. See? You have a nice sharp fold on here, so that when we go and secure this down whichever way we're going to have a very nice finished edge. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that along the rest of this, and then I will do the short ones too in fast forward, and then I will join you at the end and we will stick stuff together. Okay. Okay, we do have our hems in these now, and sorry I had to stop because my neighbor apparently just doesn't think he needs a muffler, and I swear to God, it's driving me nuts. Okay, so we have our hems in these. We are ready to go. I have made a slight change in thinking about it as I was pressing these, and I thought, you know, the chances of me holding that at a 1/4 of an inch straight are pretty slim. So I'm going to go down to a 1/8 inch score tape, because we've got the nice little iron lines in it, so we don't have to have solid wall-to-wall adhesive from here to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the adhesive on the very, you know, farthest edge here, and then we'll fold it over, and then the seam that we pressed in there will hold the edge for us. There is one thing I definitely want to do as well to reduce some bulk, and I'll show you that as we go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it up here. It's easier for me to see. Okay, I kind of open this up so you can see here when you have it in person, maybe not from where you guys are, but there's a part here where, you know, if we just go straight along here and then fold it and do this, we're going to have extra bulk. We're going to have, you know, 2 extra layers of fabric that we don't need. We're going to clip these corners, but we're going to wait until we get the score tape on them on the long sides before we clip them, just to make it easier. Okay, so where's the end of it? There it is. So do this as straight as you can. Disclaimer, disclaimer, because I think we all know I'm not going to do it terribly straight. And I'm just going to go kind of just barely into over that line, just to save myself the headache of that. And I'm going to get pretty close up to this edge up here. And same here, we're going to go about to where that line is, and the nice thing with the 1/8 inch score tape, you just tear it. Okay, we're going to do the same on this side. And actually we can do that on the short sides too. Let's go ahead and put it on the short sides. What the heck. Alright, so I have my side down here, and again, this is where this folds here, so I'm only going to go about here with it. That way you don't have to mess with trying to get this score tape straight on the end, because we'll be clipping it off. And it'll already have your fibers trapped, so it's not going to tend to fray on you as much either. Okay, let's tear that off. Do one more. hard to see. Normally I have my head right directly over it and I can see how close I'm getting to that edge. I think I'm getting fairly close. Maybe off a little bit, but that's okay. Not the end of the world. All right, so there's that, and I'm stuck. All right, so before we fold these over, I'm going to take a very sharp pair of scissors. And again, you can pretty much see where these things are, where the fold is on them. And let's see, where are you? Do it like that and kind of get it started, just so I know I'm in the right place. Okay, let's snip this corner out. And if you leave a little extra, it's fine. It's probably better because it's less of a chance that it's going to fray on you in that corner. And if you have a lighter colored fabric, it's much easier to see. But I'm just kind of folding it over so that I can get an idea of it either way, and then I'm just kind of meeting them where they're supposed to meet. That took longer than it should have, but it will be worth it because we won't have any bulk in those corners and they'll lay a lot flatter. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my bone folder out for this to help press it down. So I'm just going to pull up my score tape here from one of the long sides, and I'm going to start kind of in the center and the fold, and this is where obviously having that nice sharp crease in there helps. Okay, now it's straight in there and I can just do this. Okay, I'm gonna do the same to the other side. And the score tape does hold pretty well as far as your textiles, because you're not going to be interacting with them. If you were making something like this for a dollhouse that someone was going to interact with, you're going to want to sew it because that's really the only way it'll survive the experience, you know? All right, so we are going to do one little different thing. We're going to go ahead and do one end here, but then I want to bring the table out before we do the other end. Okay, so we'll do this end here and fold this down. I want to make sure it's actually fitting correctly because I don't want to get this done and have this be, you know, 1/16 of an inch short, because then I will be upset. So let's do this. And then I see a little bit kind of sticking out this way, so I'll take my scissors and kind of trim that off a little bit. Making very, very careful to not cut into that fabric. All right, so where's the table? So in theory, this should meet this end to end here. And if we fold this over, how is this looking? It's actually looking very good. So I'll line that up with the end there. It's the end here, so we're good to go. Yay! Yeah, so double check your length on those, just so you don't make a mistake that you don't discover until you've already put all the work into it, right? So we'll go ahead and take the tape off of there, and we'll fold this on its original crease line. And I'm just as surprised as I'm sure all of you are that I did that correctly. So yay! Yay me! And same here, we've got a little bit sticking off of there. So we definitely don't want anything kind of fraying up off of there. Okay, so there we go. So there's that one. So now I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to do that same thing to these, except I'm going to do the long edge. Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get the tape on there and I'll come back to you after I've taped down the long edge. See you in a second, as soon as I figure out how English works. Okay, so now I did want you to notice that, of course, we're not going to be doing anything to this top end. So with the tape, I did go all the way up to that one. And we're going to do like we did with the other one, where we're going to take this and we're going to fold this one over. If you go outside of the fabric on your score tape, just kind of push it back over, it'll stick. Okay, and we'll do the same thing to one end on this, just one end, because we want to measure these against table 2. Okay, so there we go. So let's get our table out and bring it up here. And what we want to do is make sure that this is going to be the right length for this, because, okay, see that? That is a little short. Well, yeah, no, it is a little short. So we can bring it out a little bit just by folding it right over on that one. We'll do the same with this one. Because, I mean, it is going to kind of fall in between there, but yeah. So I'm going to take the tape and I'm going to kind of ignore the previous line, and I'm going to fold it to where it's going just the edge of the tape, and I'm going to finger press it, and I'll use this bone folder here too, and I'm going to pull the adhesive from there and stick it down like that. Okay, that bought us a little bit of extra space. Same as this one. I'm just going to fold it right over where the tape is. And it's actually pretty easy to get a nice straight line with that, especially if it's just a small run of it like this. All right, so let's bring our table back. So we have our tablecloth here, and then we have our ends that are going to go here, and we are going to tape these here, and they're going to come down. Before we do any of that, though, we also want to figure out why I can't pick this thing up. Go away. We want to go ahead and sort of iron where it's going to go over on the table too, just to make sure we're putting these in the right place. We're not going to get it cattywampus on us, none of that. So let's see. Easiest way to do it is just look at it and make sure it's even. Okay, so where's my pencil? I'm going to go ahead and mark it there and mark it there, and that's where I'll fold it over to iron it. So I've got to get my iron back out and on, because whenever I'm not using it, I turn it off and move it away from me, because I can totally see me dropping it in my lap or something. That would be so horrible. All right, so I'm going to let this warm up, and I will be right back with you. Okay, so in theory, this should be kind of warm enough for us to do this with. So I went ahead and measured, and it is even. It's about 23 millimeters, so 2.3 centimeters from the edge on both sides. So I'm going to do, to spare myself having it go this way slanted, I already know where my line is on this part, so I'm going to fold this up so that this is nice and straight with this, so I know that's straight. I'm going to do just this little part here. I'm going to go to this side, and I'm going to measure out 2.3 centimeters, roughly. Make a bit of a mark and save myself some time. Do it over here while I'm here. 2.3. I'll still lose the mark on here, so don't worry. It will still be an adventure. And then I'm going to fold this one here up and do the same thing, making sure that this is nice and straight. I'm just going to put a little bit of a crease in there, so that way when I'm folding these over, it helps me to keep it straight. Okay, so now I've got them both folded over and finger pinned a little bit, and now I'm going to go along and just reinforce that crease with the iron. These little irons are super fun. They really are. All right. So there we go. So now we've got our crease in here. So bring table back in and put it here, kind of scooch it over there so that that's hanging down straight. just to kind of make sure our line still lines up, and it does. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go folding it over at that end and do just a little bit of it, get it started. And since we've put tape here, you're going to have to do a little bit extra on that part anyway. Same with this, my line's right there. So I'm going to bring it up, line it up with that, and put a nice little crease in there. And then now I'm going to put the whole thing on here and iron it. And I'll bring the table in and see how I did. It looks more or less straight. I don't know. We'll find out in a second. And this will just help it lay on the table the way we want it to, without having to do anything weird to it, without having to glue it down. See? There we go. It lays down just fine. Now, with these, we are going to use score tape to attach these. So we want to go ahead and fold these over too to get our folds pre-done so they'll lay flat. But I want to make sure that this is going to be lining up evenly with this. So I'm just going to hold it here. See, bring it where you can see it. There we go, sort of. Dear God. Okay. So I'm lining it up here on both ends, and then I'm going to kind of fold with my hands and bring it back down here. And I'm going to look to see, does this fold look straight? Yeah, more or less. And then I'm going to iron this one, because this is the way it's going to be on the table, so it's going to kind of hook down this way. Okay, and I'll do the same on, let's see, that'll be that side, and you know I'm going to mix them up anyway, but in theory they should be the same. So I'm lining it up here and here, so it's even. Press it over this way and then just kind of scooch it down. Right, so there we go. And finger press it, and then I'll finish this off with this. All right, so there we go. So now, yeah, here's a pro tip. When moving said stand for iron that has the metal thing to hold this to keep it off of your surface, don't grab the metal thing, because yeah, that was rather painful. But okay, let's move this out of my way, shall we? And I did it again. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many super fun injuries I had as a chef, and burns and all kinds of stuff. My depth perception's wonky, and so I would go to get something out of the fryer, and I would grab what I thought were the long tongs, which were 12-inch tongs. I would grab the short tongs and go, oh, why is my hand warm? Oh, because I just stuck it in the fryer again. Yeah, so at least I'm used to it. So now we're going to attach these to the tablecloth. And we're going to want to use our score tape for that. This one we will use the 1/4 inch, I think, for, because it's nice and wide. So on this one, you're going to want your tape closest to the folded edge, because that's the edge we want to make sure is nice and stuck. And this is actually going along here pretty good, so there's my fold, there's my fold. Yeah, I say as I completely overshoot it. God. And just know I have added a layer of difficulty by using a really dark fabric. Okay, so that's pretty good. That'll do. So now we need to put this on here. So I think probably the best way, because if I lay this out like here and then I put it on that, chances are I'm probably gonna mess it up anyway, but I'm gonna get this on here nice and straight and even. I'm gonna kind of fold this back a bit, and then I will put this on here so I can balance this, make sure it's evenly spaced here and it's laying nice and flat on the edge. And then I will try to hold it while simultaneously removing the tape. Oh, yes. Okay. So we've got that there, so I'm going to bring this back down and I'm just going to kind of lay it down on here. There we go. Alright, so now I can take this off of here and I can really press this down with my bone folder. You can use glue, you can use Fabri-Tac. Just know that Fabri-Tac likes to seep through fabric. So if you get a little too much on there, or you push down on it too early, you'll have a spot on your fabric and you don't want that. Alright, so now we've got this one on here. So let's get everybody lined up nice and square. Same way we did the other one. So I'll do it like that. Make sure it's lying flat, lying exactly the way we want it, and it is. I'll pull this up. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the score tape now. There we go. That was only by sheer coincidence that I was coordinated for a second there. Alright, so got this here. It's hanging on the edge the way I want. So I'm going to bring this over to meet this. Not foolproof, but it kind of saves me from myself a little bit. And that way it will also compensate if I was slightly off with something, you know, that sort of thing, where it's going to fit. Now it fits on here exactly, see? Take it up and off. And then again, I'm going to make sure that these are both, because I forgot which side I just put down. I think it was this one. I don't know. We're going to press them both. All right, there. Now, would I have been able to aim that? Maybe, but I doubt it. So I can flip this onto here, and there we go. So we have our main tablecloth. Again, it's only hanging down a little bit because we're going to put that, the ruffled one on here. Okay, is that a fluff or is that, no, that's part of the design. Okay, so there we go. Part one, voila. All right, so in a move that will surprise absolutely no one, this whole thing took a very long time because everything I do takes a very long time since I like to leave all the steps in. But so I've broken it up into 3 videos, as I'm sure you saw when you clicked on the thumbnail. So this was, we've stopped kind of at the, we've sort of made the tablecloth the very top one, but we still have a ways to go. So we will continue on with that in part 2, and so I will see you there. Hej med mischief. Bye.